Okay, everybody, it is 8 o'clock, and my name's Yvonne. Welcome to the Jelly Roll Club. Tonight is felt ornament number 5. I call it the Wiggly Wreath. I'm super excited you're here. Let me see who's out there with us today. So I see Alicia. Is it Alicia or Alicia? Martinez from Texas. I see Vicky from Oklahoma. I see Susan. Hi, Susan. I've got Robin from Wisconsin. Let's see, M. Miller from North Georgia. I lived in Georgia when I was stationed at Fort Benning. Georgia's a beautiful place. All right, everybody. And then I have somebody from New Hampshire. All right. Okay, everybody. So welcome to another video lesson from the Jelly Roll Club. Today, I'm going to be working on free motion work. And so some of you guys asked if you could work on these using your machine. And so, of course, I've been playing around with this stuff. And yes, you can work on this with machine. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that I've been fiddling with on my sewing machine since I got off work today. So, all right, if you are new to the Jelly Roll Club or you're a returning friend, please put your name in the chat and tell us where you're from. I hope you're having a wonderful, wonderful day today because the week is almost over. I call this pre-Friday, right? Friday Eve, right before the weekend. All right, I'm going to switch my camera view really quick and let's kind of review where we've been. So today, let me fix that. There we go. That's in better focus. So today we are working on the Wiggly Wreath. This is part of the big pattern set that is on the website. So if you have downloaded that, you should have the Wiggly Wreath. We have already worked on several of the other little things. And so instead of going backwards a ton, I'm just going to show you, recap kind of what I did yesterday. So yesterday was December 7th, and I was working on the little light bulb. And I told you guys that I was going to chain stitch, and so that's what I did today. And so there's my chain stitch. So this entire thing is done by hand, and I did 3 strands of embroidery floss, and I just did that by hand. I also played around with my sewing machine, and I tried something on my sewing machine. I'm not a fan of how it turned out. It distorted the felt a little bit, and so I'm not a super fan, but it's going to go on the back side of one of the ornaments or maybe on the front, so it'll be fine. And so this is what it looks like when I played around on my sewing machine and I did some work. So this one taught me some important lessons, and today I'm going to go over some of those lessons that I learned by playing with that. But this is the one I like best. This one is done with a blanket stitch around by hand, and I'm going to put another identical one on the back. And so my light bulb is almost ready to put together into a little sandwich. I hope you like that, right? Let's see who's with us today. I see Jojo Mom, Joanna from West Virginia, and somebody from, Regina from Alabama, and Vicky from Upper Michigan. All right, friends. So yes, Susan, that's a great question. Do you stabilize it? I'm going to answer that question for you. And the answer is, if you are embroidering by hand, you do not need to stabilize, not at all, because you're controlling the tension that's on this thread against the background, right? So you're controlling, look at that messy back. Sorry, guys. But if you have an ornament and you're making it like this out of felt, then my suggestion is that you do stabilize it with wash away or tear away stabilizer. The other thing that you can do is, instead of doing 2 layers like I did here, so I actually did 2 layers, and I think that was my problem. So I practiced with a single layer, and it turned out much nicer, and I didn't have to stabilize it, and it did not distort it. So I'm going to show you what I did. So for today, we're working on this little ornament right here, and I started playing with embroidery. So if you can see, one of the ideas I had was to just embroider on some green felt and see what it would do with and without stabilizer. So what I did to this is I simply starched it, and you can see that's the back, and that's the front, and I like how it turned out. So I simply starched it, and I did a single layer, and I found that by adjusting the tension on my sewing machine, I was able to get a really, really pretty stitch on both sides. And this is the front, and this is the back. Look at how pretty that is. That's almost reversible. So I like how that turned out. So today I'm going to show you guys how to do some of these squiggles on your cute little wreath here, and I'm going to show you how to do it using free motion embroidery on your sewing machine. And you can do this with any sewing machine, right? You can do any type of sewing machine as long as your feed dogs drop, or you can cover your feed dogs and your machine straight stitches. You can embroider on your felt. You can even do it with a treadle machine. Hi, Kathleen. So Kathleen just joined us from Portland, Maine. Welcome. All right, so let me show you guys how this works. So the first thing that I needed to do is I needed a piece of felt, right, that was the size or a little bit larger than my ornament. Let me slide it over. I'm working upside down because I'm getting ready to show you my machine. And one of the things that I did is I drew with a Sharpie like an outline, right? And I spray starched this before I began, and I let it just dry, air dry, so that it had a little bit more body and stiffness to it, and that really helped. It did not require a stabilizer that way. And this is just regular craft felt. So this has been starched, and I just took a circle, right, because I wanted it to be, and so you can see my little swirly twirly cookie, the same size as my swirly twirly cookie. And it was ready to go. And I have let me stop and answer this question. Did you starch one side and let it dry and turn it over in free motion? I starched both sides. I sprayed this felt both sides with starch, just regular, faultless Luxe Finish starch, nothing fancy, right? Just this stuff here. I just sprayed it. I didn't put any heat on it because this is acrylic and not wool, and then I let it dry. So once I did that, I was ready to go. And I found that one layer of felt is best. All right, and so I simply took it nice and stiff, and then I took my Sharpie marker and I just made it slightly bigger than what I need. If you notice, the green inside the cookie is smaller. It's about a ½ inch in from the cookie. So I'm going to give myself a generous amount of space to work and kind of move it around. So I'm using a piece that's a little bit bigger so I can put my hands on both sides. And yes, this is wasteful, but I'm okay with this because I can use this green for leaves and do a different applique. And I simply put little dots with my Sharpie like this, just kind of outside of this little cardboard template that I made for the swirly twirly cookie. And I basically gave myself a reference point. So just a circle, right? Just like that. The next thing that I did, once I made my reference circle, and I did that here, but it's hard to see on the dark green. The next thing that I did, and you can see it on this one, is I started just kind of, you can run a stitch all the way around, and then I set up my sewing machine for free motion stitching. So free motion stitching on most machines requires you to drop the feed dogs or cover the feed dogs. And let me show you what that looks like. So I'm going to switch my camera really quick, and I'm going to set up my machine for you. So let me move this out of the way. And I'm going to bring my sewing machine over here. Let me see if I can get you right where I want you. There you go. Can you guys see my sewing machine right here and both of my hands? All right. So let me move myself out of the way so you guys can see. There you go. So on my sewing machine, I am using on here what is called an open-toed foot. And an open-toed foot, can you guys see that? Is a foot that literally just has a circle with a hole in it, right? Most sewing machines you can get a foot for, but you can buy even inexpensive. So like this is the one that I use with my vintage machines. Can you see that here? Let me untangle all of these feet. So this one is like a plastic one that I bought for my machines. You see that? And it did not have an open toe. So what I did is I went into the garage and I took my husband's pliers and I chopped the plastic in between those two lines, and then I filed it with my nail file, and I made my own open toe for one of my other machines. So if you cannot find an open toe and you just find a closed toe, you can take that and you can make your own. And let me make sure that it's in focus. Hang on. Sorry, friend, let me turn off my phone. All right. And so I made my own open toe foot because I didn't have one for that particular machine. But I love open toed feet. Some of the sewing machines come like this with a plastic guide in it, and I'm not a super fan of that because that makes it harder to get in there and see and do what you need to do. But I'm a super fan, and this one goes on a different machine I have, of these open toed feet. So if you can find one that's open like that, that's perfect. And so this is the one I use. All right, so what happens with your machine when you free motion is you just set it up, and I set my stitch length to 2.0, just like I do when I'm piecing, and I add my open-toed foot. Then I have to address my feed dogs because I don't want my feed dogs moving and doing this because it's going to snag my felt. And so what I have to do is I have to drop those feed dogs on my machine. And so that goes down. If your machine's feed dogs do not drop, you can always use some of this, I don't know, they call it washi tape. Do you see that? Mine has kitty cats all over it. And this is a tape that's easy to remove, and it leaves very little sticky residue. And so what you can do with this stuff is literally take and just cover where your feed dogs go, not where your needle goes up and down. You can put a little piece of cardboard to reinforce that. And so if you have a machine whose feed dogs don't drop, that's what I use. And I reuse this tape all the time. And I literally just cover the places where your feed dogs would go with some of this removable tape, and it doesn't leave any residue. And I just leave that little hole open where my machine goes. But I don't need this right now because mine do drop. But if yours do not drop, you can always take a little piece of cardstock and use painter's tape, and then just tape so that it just covers your feed dogs like this, but leaves that little tiny hole open. Okay? So now that I have it, if you've ever free motioned before, you know that you have to pull your threads up. So I'm going to pull my thread up. I have a full bobbin. I have my presser foot down. And I'm going to pull my threads behind my machine. Okay? The next thing that I'm going to do, now that my feed dogs are down, is I have to stabilize this. So I'm going to sew a single stitch all the way around, and it'll kind of give me a little bit of a reference to see how fast or how slow I need to move my machine. My hands determine my stitches. So this is not automatic. It's not like an embroidery machine. And so your hands actually have to move the fabric. First thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to bring my bobbin thread up from the bottom. And you do this anytime that you machine quilt. And so I'm going to bring that up from the bottom, and I'm going to pull it. Can you guys see that? So it comes up like this. You see the little loop? And then I take a pin or my tweezers or whatever I have, and I do this when I'm free motion quilting, and I just bring that up from the bottom. Pinch it and pull. And the reason I do that is because I want to be able to tie this off, right? My start and my stop. So I'm going to hold that with both of my fingers. Make sure this is down. And I'm going to set my my foot on the pedal, and I'm holding this away from where I want to sew with one finger, and I'm just going to start sewing in one spot. And you'll get a rhythm about this. You'll start to really get a feel for free motioning once you practice. And this little project is a great little project for this. And so now here it goes. I'm going to start, and I'm going to go all the way around that little circle that I did, and I'm kind of getting a feel for my machine's tension to see if I need to adjust it. So then I stop with my needle down, and I'm going to check that, right? And as you can see, can you guys see those stitches? They're looking pretty darn even, and I'm not getting any skip stitches. And if I look on the back, that's looking pretty even too, and I'm getting no bird's nest, so that's pretty good. And so I will continue moving in a circle around the outside just to kind of give me a feel for how quickly my hands need to move that fabric. And this is the hardest thing to get, is that rhythm. Like how quickly your hands need to move the material. But you can get a pretty smooth circle just like that. And those stitches are pretty even without a stitch regulator. And it just takes some practice, honestly. Free motion quilting looks really ugly at first. And then after you practice, it starts looking prettier and prettier. Make sure you hold your hands on both sides to keep your fabric from lifting. Okay, once I've stabilized that, I can come in here, and now I can actually take and I can start sewing designs right on top of my felt. And so one of the things that I can do is I can flip my piece upside down, and I can do something called bobbin work. And so for bobbin work, I'm going to take an empty bobbin, and I'm actually going to put on this bobbin right here, I'm going to put some of my pearl cotton. So you guys remember, did you guys remember the one I did for the gnome for October, where I wrapped pearl cotton around my bobbin and I sewed upside down? Do you guys remember when I did that? So I'm going to be doing the same thing. And so I have my pearl cotton here, and I'm going to actually wrap it around a bobbin. And so I'm going to take, see if you can see my hands, this pearl cotton, which is really thick, and I'm going to literally wrap it around my bobbin with my hands. Let me see if you can see that. So if you are interested in bobbin work, I did a video with the Gnome of the Month for the Halloween house, a little spooky house. And I showed people basically how to sew upside down using pearl cotton. And so what I'm doing is I'm taking my bobbin and that pearl cotton, that great big spool, can you guys see that? Of pearl cotton, which is like 3 strands of embroidery floss. It's the same thickness. And I'm simply wrapping it around my bobbin by hand. Now this is too thick to go through the needle, so I'm going to have to sew this with the side that's going to get the design to the bottom, right? And so I'm going to keep rolling it until my bobbin is mostly full. And I'm just going to put this just like I would the bobbin. You can adjust the tension a tiny bit if you need to, but I find that it's not necessary. So you're going to use regular thread in the upper part of your machine and this pearl cotton in the lower part. So I'm going to chop that off. Right, let me add a little bit more. There's nothing like playing bobbin chicken and losing. So if you have never, ever done bobbin work, this is something that I suggest that you try because it opens your world to a huge bunch of design possibilities. So there's that little tail from where I started. I'm just going to snip that off to keep it out of the way. And I'm going to take that spool of pearl cotton and I'm going to trim that off. So now I'm going to pull this up, and I'm going to pull that away, and I'm going to trim those threads against there, just really small, and I'm going to remove my bobbin out of the bottom. And instead, I'm going to replace, and I'm going to put that bobbin that I filled with pearl cotton. And look at how thick that is. Now that pearl cotton is way too thick to go through the regular needle and go through the upper tension of your machine. So that is why you put it in the bobbin. And you can actually do this with all kinds of items. You can do this with yarn. You can do this with thick threads. And I'm going to be showing you how to do it with yarns tomorrow night. So I have regular thread in the top. I have pearl cotton in the bottom, and I'm going to pull that out. And up it comes. You see that? Nice, big, thick. And let me see if I can adjust my machine so you can see what I'm doing. Can you guys see that? If I move my machine over. And I just like teaching something different each day because I think it's important to add tools to your toolbox. So now I have it, right? I have this bobbin thread, and I have regular thread, so if you notice. And then I'm just going to pull it. I'm going to come in, right? I'm going to kind of visualize where my design is going to be in the middle. I can just use the bobbin I removed or another little circle, and I'm going to lay that here. And I'm going to kind of draw in the middle because that's the part that's going to get cut away. And you can use anything. You can use your bobbin. You can use the top of a water bottle. And I'm just going to draw, center that really well, and I'm going to draw around that just like I did with, you see those little dots? Just like I did with the other one. And that's simply just reference points so that I don't sew inside there. And so there it is. It doesn't matter because felt is 100% reversible, but this is what is going to be my pretty side. So the side that you're going to see, I'm going to put my pretty side down. This is my ugly side, and that's the one with all the marks, and it's going to go up. Okay? So I'm going to take, and I'm going to come kind of in the middle, and I'm going to do a squiggly design because that was one of the things that was in the drawing, was a squiggly design. And so I'm going to come in, I'm going to drop my presser foot, and I'm going to pull up that thread through here. And so I'm going to pull up that bobbin. There it goes. See that? Pulled up, just pulled it right through that felt, that big thick pearl cotton. Like I said, you can do this with yarn. You could do this with all kinds of ribbon. If you have an extra bobbin case for your machine, practice adjusting your bobbin case. And there it goes. I drop it down. And now I can start free motion sewing little tiny swirls. And so I'm just going to go very slowly. And I'm going to hold these away from me because I'm going to want to trim those later. And I'm going to simply make that squiggly line that goes all the way around the little wreath. And so I'm just going to go like this. And I'm going to carefully just kind of sew the little swirly, and I'm going to go side to side, just like that. And it'll make that swirly, twirly little edge on my cookie. And I'm going to not be too fussy about it. I'm going to go down and up, just like that. And I'm going to stop with my needle down, and I'm going to check my work on the other side. And if you notice, because this was starched, it lays perfectly flat. And on the other side, voila, look what I have here. I have a perfect, perfect little chain stitch. Can you guys see that? I'll take it off in a minute. And so on this side, all of a sudden, I have this perfect little thick line where my pearl cotton has been sewn down. And I really love how that looks. So let me continue working, and I'm going to go slow, and I'm still checking my tension. My tension looks really, really good. These over here at the beginning. I'm going to tie them off. So I'm just going to literally tie like a little knot, like you would be if you were tying your shoes. Just like this. And I'm going to make a little tie-off knot for that. And now I'm going to continue sewing my little twirly swirly little line. And it's going to go over a little bit and then down a little bit and then over a little bit and then down. And I can just keep rotating and moving really slow. Like this takes time, and it's not we're not rushing, right? And you don't need anything fancy. And as long as you kind of keep your hands flat and you starch your felt really, really well, that keeps it from distorting and becoming a huge mess. And just try to keep your stitches even. And keep your hands flat as possible. And work in little sections and turn your material, not your hands. Your wrists only go so far, but your material can move, and it's easy to just literally spin it around like this and just keep your hands about 6 inches apart from each other, and there we have it. And so I'm going to cut my thread, and I'm going to pull that away, and look what I have. I have this line now that's nice and thick, and it's stitched down. And if it's distorted, you can always spray this with water or a little bit more starch and flatten it and let it dry. And it doesn't require stabilizer, and it doesn't require anything. And look at that perfect little stitched line that you now have to do that with. And like I said, I'm just using regular pearl cotton, but you could do this with a slightly thicker yarn, and I'm gonna be practicing that. And so I think this is a great little thing to practice, and you could literally do it on one of those cheap pieces of acrylic felt that's like, 59 cents or whatever, something from the Dollar Tree, and just practice doing this on your machine. And you don't need a fancy machine at all to do this. You really just need a regular domestic machine that sews a straight stitch, and you put your thick thread or your thick yarn through the bobbin case, in the bobbin. And so just like that, I stopped, and look, my thread cutter cut it, so I can just pull that little tail out. And you just need to be able to feed the material through your bobbin case. And like I said, you may want to buy an extra bobbin case because you can loosen these two little screws on yours, but you don't want to do that with the bobbin case that you use for everyday sewing. And so this is an extra bobbin case that I purchased just to do bobbin work. And it does some really, really fun things. What do you guys think about this? Is this something that you guys think that you would try with your machine? And I'm going to show you how to do some loops and some stuff. So this is just the outside now of this swirly twirly cookie, and I'm going to do this again, and I'm going to show you some loops. Okay, so I'm going to pull this back out now that I've cut it, and I'm going to do the same thing again. I'm just going to put it back in my bobbin holder, and this is the pretty side. The ugly side is this back side, right? And see how it puckered a little bit on me? No problem. I can lay that on my wool mat and give her a press, and then she will be ready to go. And so same thing I just did. I can move to another spot. Oh, Jody, we're sorry to see you go. Come back tomorrow night. We'll be here. You can always watch the replay as well. And so if I want to do little swirls, I do the same thing. I just drop my needle down and I pull it back up. And then I'm just going to shoot that over to the side. I'll pull my bobbin thread and up it comes. And you can do all kinds of things. If you get really, really good, sometimes you can go faster, but I just find that I'm not in a big fat rush, so I'm going to do what I need to do. Okay, I'm going to put that down. And what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take and I'm going to try to do little circles, right? So I'm going to try to do little circles to make the little circle frosting dots on my little wreath. And so I'm just going to go in a circle, and I'm going to start in the middle, and I'm going to get wider. and that's a frosting dot. And I can do a little line going out and come back in and do a little line going out. If you notice on this, the little wavy cookie, it had these little things that look like stars, right? So that's what I'm going to work on. I'm going to work on some of these little stars. And so I'm moving it, right? And I'm coming out from the center and then back to the middle. Out from the center and then back to the middle. And then rotate it. And you're just making a shape that looks like a little sunshine, little sun. And like I said, all of this could be done by hand, but also it could be done by machine. And then I would show you both ways. All right, so that is done. And so I'm going to go ahead and cut my thread. My poor thread cutter probably hates me. And then next thing you know, I have a little star in the front, just like that. And I could trim it. And I could add a little bit of fray check if I want that to not fray. But there's a little star. And I could add a dot of fray check so that that doesn't come apart in the middle, just like that. And I let it dry. And this is how you can add all of those designs to your cute little wiggly wreath without having to do all of it by hand. All right, friends, it is 8:31, and I know that it's very late and some of you guys have to go to work tomorrow. So I'm going to sign off tonight. We will be back tomorrow night, and tomorrow night, what is on the agenda? Let's look and see. I'm going to show you some other fun things tomorrow night. Let's see what is on the calendar for tomorrow. We are doing the bell. So tomorrow night we're doing the bell, and that one has big wide frosting. So tomorrow night we're doing the happy little bell. So let me move that over. And so this is what we're doing tomorrow night. Let's put that down here so you can see. And so I'm going to do the same thing, but I'm going to try to do it with a slightly thicker yarn. And so I'm going to be using one of my vintage machines so that I can show you this. And this is just a really fun design. I'm going to show you how to do all of this. Like I said, you can do all of this stuff by hand, just like this, or you can do all of this stuff by machine. And it doesn't matter. You do something that works for you. And if you can learn a few new skills, that's wonderful. All right, everybody, you guys have a great night. I will see you tomorrow. Same bat time, same bat channel. Please give this video a thumbs up and ring that bell so you get notified whenever I post anything in the community tab or another video. So I appreciate you being here tonight. I love to sew and I love sharing things with you guys. And please leave me some comments, share some feedback. I've already worked on the gingerbread boy and the gingerbread girl, and I'm finishing up the house, and I'm going to drop those early. So I like being an early bird, so I'm going to drop those off probably either tomorrow or Saturday for you guys to download and print if you want to do a little gingerbread boy and a little gingerbread girl. All right, friends, you guys have a wonderful night, and I will see you guys later. Bye for now. I'll see you guys later, and don't forget, happy sewing.